you're ready to say hello to the wide internet, it is there for taking.
Hello, Internet. It is I, Jason Anarchy, Games Man.
Absolutely. You know what I mean? You sound good. Okay. How's the sync? How are the lips? The lips. The lip.
Test,
Yeah.
test, test. Wait, am I supposed to be able to hear some other people too?
Mm-mm. No, they're just in
Oh,
chat.
okay.
Yeah,
Whew.
yeah, yeah.
I was gonna say there's an issue there.
It's not working. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hold on. Why am I not finding that image now? I made. It's so glorious. I was like sitting there while we were playing. I was like, yeah, okay,
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
not bad. Yeah, you're doing some curls.
There it is. Hey, we got it. Oh my goodness. All right, we're doing great. Anyway, so we're up and we're out to the real world. I just have to move the overlay a little bit again. I don't know how. Speaking of the overlay, okay, you looked great. Mine just shifted over for some reason.
Pretty good looking. Yeah, you don't need to
Okay,
laugh at that.
I do,
Okay.
I do. You're funny. So that's the other thing. Like seeing as we're just sitting here, like listening to the interview, I was like, I really love like how like well spoken, like how considerate you are. You talked a lot about like the hand of the designer in the game, right? Like,
Sure.
um, Drinkingquest was I think the first game you published, right? I don't know that it was the first game you ever made because you talked about like making games with your friends and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah. I made all kinds of like unofficial games. Like thinking back, the first game I think I made. There might have been one or two before that, but I remember being like 7 or 8 years old, and I had this Legend of Zelda game that I made because I just played Zelda 2 and I loved it. So I made a game called Ganon's Bad Day. And
That's a
so thinking back, I'm
that's
like, I'd
a
like to see that game now. It had like shortcuts and elements from the game, and it was pretty good. So I'd make a lot of board games and stuff just for fun. I'd play them with kids from the neighborhood, and people were always into this, and they just want to play these games I would make. And now that I'm a professional, and it's like trying to find playtesters is a goddamn disaster. And it's like, but when I made them for fun, it was always easy to get people to play them. But as soon
right.
as I need to analyze data, it was a completely different beast.
Right, suddenly no one's on the phone.
Yeah, yeah, it's no, which is fine. Like in general, like it's I can get playtesters that I need, but for the longest time, like up into my 20s, it was like there was just always people available, and it's probably just a symptom of just being a grown up, and people just get locked down with their lives, and that's hard to do things. So conventions were good for that. So I hope those start again sooner rather than later.
Dude, you're not kidding. And that's so after we it was cool. So that like I was saying, I really liked, like you had a really good handle on your design. You knew what your games wanted to do. You had found this little niche that I thought was really interesting. One of the remarks you made like pretty early on, because I made it about 20 minutes into our interview. So I look forward to finishing it now, especially after the fact. Um, and so you like I said, you were talking about like the hand of the designer, which I thought was like really really cool. Your Haiku Warrior didn't have a DM, which obviously wasn't the first game to not have a DM, but like that space was not explored very well 5 years ago. We
Yeah,
were hitting that was just getting to be like, we think that DM's kind of weird sometimes.
yeah, and like solo kind of adventure tabletop games have there's like a scene for that now, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of neat. I didn't start it, but maybe it was a little bit ahead of that curve. So
Yeah, I would say so. At least from my experiences, it seemed like you were very very much ahead of that. And then like the acknowledgement of like because I use this reference then too, and I'll rip myself off. I don't mind even a little bit. Like the beer and pretzels style game, which is like
sure,
gaming for fun, gaming casually, gaming right, just because
yeah,
like you said, you were like, I had this experience where I was playing these games with these people and they were 10 out of 10 games. These were quality games. And it was like, how do I capture that? How do I bottle that up? And that was kind of how to make an awful pun, you distilled, right, that feeling
oh,
into Drinking
good
Quest.
joke,
Right.
yeah,
But the thing that I also really liked about it, and I'm a little bit curious, a little bit like I don't know, and this isn't meant to be a gotcha. I don't know if you ever got like flack for like, well, a drinking game, a drinking RPG that that could send some people down like a wrong path. But
Oh,
like, but you
sure,
you
yeah,
did the math. You were like, no, we play tested this extensively. Like you were talking about, like we did the math, we ran
yeah,
it. You should never hit over 4.5 drinks over the course of the game.
yeah, yeah. It's yeah. So in a certain sense, it's only half drinking game, and how is it half drinking game? So it's the other half is RPG. So half RPG, half drinking game is any game in the Drinking Quest series. And the reason it's half drinking game is because if you look at any drinking game, they're all just unlimited, and you play them until basically the first person is just like, okay, I can't keep doing this. That, based on my research, that's about 15 minutes in any given drinking game.
Right.
Even if you're watching a movie and doing a drinking game. I played the Home Alone drinking game once that me and my friend made up in high school,
Okay.
and we're like every time something's supposed to be funny, not just funny, every time something's supposed to be funny, you take a shot. And that was one of my earliest memories of getting in trouble for drinking underage. But anyway, so that they're basically unlimited, but with Drinking Quest, it's like there actually is like a mechanical limit to the amount of chugs that the game gives you. So it's not like a sippy game; it's like a full down your drink kind of game. So it's half RPG. So it takes this big dumb exciting genre and makes it slow and methodical and math based. And I'm about to come out with Millennial Manatees, which is it's a very sideways take on the whole millennial culture, because the way people view millennials, if you love them or hate them, positive or negative, well, it's just such a clusterfuck, terrible. Sorry, can I swear on here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, perfect. It's just there's no conversation that ends well. So my collaborator Zach Stafford and I, we had a very kind of neutral stance, but we just made it dumber, and we're just trying to end the conversation. So we depicted millennials as these wide-eyed manatees, and it's just got a lot of non sequitur humor. I think people are going to expect the game to say something about millennials, but it's not. But it's also just a fun game that kind of has this bizarre fantasy world full of millennial manatees that are trying to pay off their student debt. And it comes in a pink fanny pack, which is kind of neat. So there's no game box. It's a wearable pink fanny pack.
Good.
It's got a cloth board, cards. There's all kinds of components in there. So once conventions start again, I fully expect people to be walking around with these pink fanny packs.
Yeah, and
all
you're
the
gonna.
time.
And
If I see one, I'll be very happy with it.
Right, and you're gonna know every time. You're like, I did that. That was me.
That's yeah.
So
I was responsible for that fashion statement. Yeah.
So in 5 years, when we're back again, right, Electric Dice Podcast, Jason Anarchy, right, for our third creator interview, we're gonna be like, so Jason, tell me what it was like to be at the forefront of like fanny pack gaming, just on the go, right? You created like the collapsible folding chess game that you could play, right? Did you ever have one of those little claw monsters where you'd put the coin on, you'd hit the key, and it would reach out and grab it and drag it in?
No, that sounds neat though.
Yeah. We'll get fanny packs that have those, right? That like grab things for you or
like
whatever.
it. Like the water drinking bird in a fanny pack.
I love those. I love those.
We'll just keep combining these horrible past trends. But no, yeah, in 5 years, every game will be in a fanny pack.
Yeah.
Like the Asmodee will be like, well, yeah, why aren't we doing this before? It's a great idea.
Right? Yeah.
You'll see the hardcore fans at shows will have multiple fanny packs with multiple games, and they'll just be ready to go. They'll just play any game they want because they'll be wearing them.
Oh, it's good. I think there's something there. I think it's just ridiculous enough that gamers are going to buy it.
Yeah, it was kind of a last minute thing too. Originally, the game was going to have a box, and then it had fanatee packs in it that the in-game manatees used to keep track of their manatee coins. And then Zach was just kind of like near the end. He's like, "Well, fuck it. Why don't we just put it in an actual fanny pack?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I contacted my manufacturer. It turned out my rep there actually had suggested that idea earlier. My brain had skimmed over it, as sometimes happens with blocks of information in emails.
Right. A ton.
Yeah. So and I'm pretty happy with it. It's not only is it a pink fanny pack, but it's a shiny pink fanny pack. So it's just atrocious to look at. It's this horrible, wonderful game. I'm very proud of it. / ashamed of it.
Yeah, it's a good space to be in, right? It's just enough like, well, I did it. Nobody else has to now, but I did, which means if it's a great idea, I was always for it. And
it's definitely unique. So that's, I can't ever be accused of, coming out with more of the same.
That's so funny. Well, no, it's just like three question mark question mark. So have you been keeping it to a year, or is it kind of back and
Uh,
forth?
yeah. It has been about two a year. If yeah, at least as an average number, I'll take that. And then I published a game that I didn't design. This game called the Neckbeard. The designer, basically had the game finished. He's also an artist, so it's a game about neckbeards.
Yeah.
And he just posted the cards on just neckbeard things on Reddit, and it was spectacularly funny in a way that I never see anything that funny in tabletop games.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, okay, I like this guy's style, so I reached out, and yeah, I've been publishing his game since, and it's been a good relationship, and yeah, lots of convention people tend to get that sense of humor,
Sure.
which thank God, because I thought it was just as likely they'd be offended by it.
Mm,
But luckily, nobody's been coming up to the booth going, "I identify as a neckbeard."
right.
You can't appropriate my neckbeardness.
It's like,
So,
well,
uh, so luckily, it's you don't really need to be sensitive about them, because I guess people that are neckbeards don't know that they're neckbeards,
sure.
or maybe there's a little bit of neckbeard in all of us, and
Yeah.
I just have yet to meet like the alpha neckbeard.
I think I saw him at Gen Con, like 47. Very tall, and I'll be honest, a little bit smelly. Um,
Sounds like Gen Con.
yeah, sounds like Gen
Yeah.
Con. Yeah, so like I'm super disappointed that we missed so many conventions this year. And like
Yeah.
I don't know that I don't know, man. Like eventually the world has to go back to normal, at least in some capacity, right? Like it's
Mhm.
just too big and too much is still going. But yeah, like I've heard the rumors about, like they're planning for Gen Con 2021. Like they have to figure out some solutions. Things can't be as close quarters as they used to be. You know what I mean? Like unless
Yeah.
we turn around and have a vaccine that works, that somehow every single person takes, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
and so yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I agree. So Chad is telling us, if you think you're a neckbeard, you're definitely not one. They
Oh,
aren't
okay.
self aware enough, which I think is probably fair.
There'll be a name for that day when the neckbeards become self-aware.
Oh yeah, right.
Beardment Day. Yes, it'll be good.
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah.
Could be a good sequel name. I want to write that down actually.
Right. Yeah. We talked about
Beardment
the
Day.
we talked about the lettuce points from the Flying Turtles game the last time too, or cabbage, something like that.
Oh
Rocket
yeah, yeah,
turtles and flying cabbage, and you just that's how you. It seems like, obviously I won't speak for you, but it seems like that's how you work. You're constantly iterating. You're constantly cooking something up, which I think is really
yeah.
awesome. And it's really admirable to like have that energy and go after it. And I think your portfolio and your work speaks for itself.
Yeah, part of that is yeah, when you have a collaborator, fear of letting the other person down, so you don't want to let down the people you're working with.
Hmm.
And then in a normal year, I travel like a lot for conventions, like about 20 times. So I've gotten really good at just being in the habit of just having my laptop with me, or just having a notepad, and just hammering out and just finishing things while I'm away. And it's like, okay, I've got this idea. What would that look like? So there's another game I'm doing with a webcomic person. It's not public yet, but I did this one convention in Nova Scotia where I was in a hotel room, and I don't know, I didn't go with anyone. I was just alone.
Hmm.
So just over 2 nights, though, I just hammered out these mechanics. And I know why the game's going to be funny. I know why the gameplay is going to be good. I know what components it's going to have. And so it should be a pretty simple playtest session. Like, of course, I'll refine it. Of course, I'll make changes.
Yeah.
But I know what that game is going to be. And then, but actually, like, printing cards and stuff like that, that's stuff to do while you're away. But a lot of the idea stuff I would often do while I was away from home, which is good because, you got, other kind of stimuli around you. So
Yeah.
not to say it's impossible to do from home, it totally is doable. But that's kind of my normal routine when it's not 2020 hell year.
Sure. Yeah. Wow. And talk about it, man. That's crazy. So I always try and send a couple of the questions ahead, to make sure that people have that moment to answer. This is no gotcha journalism or anything. So
Sure.
I really liked your answer. I'm going to spoil it for you, and you
Yeah,
can amend it or change it now. But at the very bottom,
no problem.
I just added gaming under COVID, and I kind of meant like what have you had to change, and how have you done it and everything. But like true
Sure.
form, you just knocked it out of the ballpark with very carefully, period. And I was like, well, I don't know what I expected.
Yeah, yeah, it's no, yeah, it's I don't know, it's more online for actual playing, stuff like that. Um, oh yeah, my newest Kickstarter, I didn't even mention that before. Yeah, it's called Your Friend is Sad, and it's about cheering up a sad friend. It was a collab I did with Shen Comics. I think it was the biggest Kickstarter I'd done yet. But that game, because I couldn't play test as with different physical people, it was like, okay, well, I need a plan to get like a lot of feedback. So I had really fine-tuned that one already. So for the first time, I'd actually created like a mechanism on the Kickstarter where it's like if you backed it, you can be sent an early version and offer feedback and have your name as a playtester in the rulebook. So in general, in my mind, I'm like, okay, all those names could get dangerous, but I'm like, okay, I'll just name the people that play tested. I think it was like 75, 80 people or something. So it's like, okay, so that'll, and it did well enough where I don't need to worry about the number of pages in the rulebook.
Sure.
So it's like, okay, happily, I'll get those people in there, and you can choose how you're credited. So if you want to be, Johnny Toilet Face or whatever dumb inside joke you have with your friends, so that could be a fun thing. So so that's new for me, and generally with the feedback, like there are a few like minor things that I might change, but it was that there were 2 points that when I was doing this, not final rule book, but I wanted it to be as final as it could be. There were still a couple things where it's like, should I mention that? It's like, I won't mention that. And then overwhelmingly, most of the feedback was, oh, okay, yeah, I should have put in that one sentence.
Yep.
And then, people would have had the context they needed, to make decisions. So it was basically like, people were seeing symbols on the cards and they're like, there are cards with fewer symbols that are worth more points. That's bad. People are getting upset about that. But I needed to make a point in the rule book about the rarity of certain cards, so that they're not all created equal. They're harder to get, even though there's fewer of them that you need. So so that was interesting for me. And generally most people enjoyed the game, which is good. I would have hated to do a Kickstarter and build all this momentum and put in an insane amount of work. And everyone's like, wow, this is garbage. How could you put this out there? So it's like, you never want to get too cocky. There's that could always happen. So thankfully it didn't, though.
That's just wild to think about. I guess that's why you're probably still succeeding, though, because 10 years of, like consistent improvement, great games, you know what I mean? You're still working all these not sponsorships, but like collabs and everything. And then you still, you can say, well, we keep it honest and, we go in looking to make it funny and make it work. And we'll be pleasantly surprised when we come out the other side. That's admirable.
Yeah. The business model has, always loosely kind of been like stuff that I would make for fun to make my dumb friends laugh will often make other people that are similar to my dumb friends laugh. And so far that's been like a pretty good model. So
that's wild. I like that. So there's 2 things I want to jump on there. I know we're not really following that script anymore, but it'll serve its purpose eventually. I don't know where, but the first one is that I am always curious. I am quite literally fascinated by the prospect of playtesting, and I think the thing that almost hangs me up the most is like, how are you gonna, like you said, how are you gonna sort out, well, this card should be worth this, right? Like, I'm mad about this color, right? Like, people are so opinionated, and thankfully people are usually better at telling you why they don't like something than why they do.
Sure.
Because I feel like
which is good for playtesting,
right? I was gonna say, it probably is great when they're like, I don't know, but it works, and you're like, all right, check mark, right? Like, that's easy. But like, yeah, how do you like? Do you have anything that you can share on that? Because obviously, just open your trade secrets, but like,
yeah, no, that's not a trade secret at all. So if someone's out there and you're looking to make your own game, or you're sort of new at it, you want to play test with as many different people as possible, and not just your friends and not just your mom and dad kind of thing. You don't want people that will necessarily worry about hurting your feelings. So if you can go to a convention in normal times and play test with strangers, that's always great, because they have no other relationship with you than they're looking to give you honest feedback about this game. Now what can happen there is that not all feedback is created equal. You don't want to bow down to every piece of advice that you hear back, because the intention of what your game is meant to be. The general. You're the only person that sees all parts in this equation. So when people are giving you feedback, you're like, does this make my idea better, or does it go in a different direction? Because you'll often get feedback of people that have a different view of what it should be, or have a different, set of games that influenced them, kind of thing. I would say in a lot of cases you do want to stay true to what you're trying to make. At the same time, look for patterns. If everyone's having the same problem, fix that problem. The best possible way you can play test is to give someone the rules, have them read the rules, and you don't explain it, and then you observe them playing and see what they naturally do, and see, if there's a paragraph in the rule book that they spend 10 minutes on trying to understand, that needs to be better, kind of thing. So yeah, that's generally what it is. And then at the same time, if you have close friends that can be mean to you when the time comes, they can also be good play testers. So big shout out to Big Simple Comics out there, Big Simple Live on Twitter. He's a great friend for that, because he's such a jerk, and it's like he'll always tell me honestly, like he has no problems about sparing my feelings. But no, I love the guy. He's great. But yeah, there are certain people that it's like, okay, if they know what they're in for, then it doesn't matter that they're not strangers. They can absolutely still be great playtesters. So just really make sure that people aren't being nice to you because they think it's neat that you make a game.
Okay, that kind of makes sense. That seems like it's actually super useful for you on like maybe your second or your third game too, right? At the point where people are like, oh, they're really cool and I want to be nice to them, or oh, they're really cool and I want to come off good, so I'll just say yes, 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 right? And then you forget to kind of check yourself. But it seems like the core of what you're talking about is consistently like bringing it back to like a humble and an ethical, right, center, right? Like
sure.
we talked about, you took the time, you very specifically for your very first game to make sure that like this drinking isn't going to get out of hand. And I think that shows through every time you look at the game, right? This newest Kickstarter's about helping someone, right? It is a game to support.
So your friend is sad, has a lot of depressing humor, but it's like kind of sweet depressing humor. It's like the one friend is on the card and he's sad in a different way on like 100 cards, but the friend is trying to cheer him up, so it's okay, and that's the ultimate purpose of the game. So we can tackle these difficult topics of depression and sadness, because at the end there's like a sweet motivation for it, kind of thing. And it was definitely like a delicate bit of subject matter to handle. Like we had a disclaimer on the Kickstarter page where it's like, okay, if you're beyond what would be typical sadness and you feel like it could be something more, here's some great resources, kind of thing. So shout out to Dr. B who wrote that for me. That was a PAX meetup. We were at the happy hour, and it was kind of funny. We were drinking beer in the happy hour, and I had one friend. He's like, "Hey, you gotta meet this guy. This is Dr. B." I'm like, "Oh, hello, I'm Jason from Drinkingquest," and he's like, "It's like Drinkingquest. I played that at my bachelor party." I was like, "Oh yeah, this is great." Cool. So that was a really fun meetup. So another piece of advice I like to give people is, again, it's not a good year for it, but it's like, in a normal year, be where the people are, and that's conventions, and it's if you want to break in, just make friends with people, and then if down the line it's like, oh, I know so and so, and they're good at this, and I need somebody who does that job, kind of thing.
Sure.
Then that's more often than not how it works out.
Yeah, that's cool. And like, to the 9 people watching kind of thing, right? Like I can say, as someone who has kind of hovered around that sort of fringe, kind of getting the opportunity now and then to talk to people who are in the gaming community, that has consistently been not only the advice but also like extremely warm welcome, right? I've never had a bad conversation from somebody who's working in gaming, because like it's entertainment, it's fun, you know what I mean? When done really well, I think it can also be educational. And there has never been a conversation like, actually we're full up, don't need any more, actually you should probably take a hike, go on down, see if TV needs anybody. Like, never been the case. And
there's a few bad apples everywhere, but generally at gaming conventions it's like people are earning it to have the privilege of being in a fun industry.
Yeah, no, that's super. This is totally self-serving. This one is an obvious plan. Ever so slightly familiar with Kickstarter. Do you have like the backer kit option, where if people miss the Kickstarter, they still have a chance to get in at like some sort of ground floor, or?
Oh yeah, yeah. I use Pledge Manager, so if you look up your friend is sad on Pledge Manager, you could still sign up there. And I have a pre-order on my site, jasonanarchygames.com as well. Yeah, and those are fun because they're very well organized, and yeah, there are a lot of people that want all the advantages of the campaign, but missed the 30-day period or whatever. So,
Yeah.
and generally there's several months where you're still you're prepping for manufacturing, and then you're working with manufacturers. So it's there's definitely some time there.
Cool. Yeah, I just dropped both of those. The Drinking Quest I already had put in there, but the Pledge Manager just dropped into, and then that'll be my reminder to make sure it goes into the YouTube too.
Cool, thanks, appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to have this conversation if we don't try and give people that opportunity to go find you. You know what I mean? I think that's one of the things.
Oh, and the Kickstarter page just links to it as well, so that's also really
cool.
So
yeah.
So yeah, check out the Kickstarter page. That's I think it's yourfriendissad.com still leads there. Maybe, I don't know. Let me know, but it's available if you look for it.
Oh, that just
to the viewers, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't want to tie you up looking for a specific link.
You're good. I like poking around. I just typed it in. I didn't realize I was typing it into Google, so it didn't actually do it. It just searched for it. Yep. It sends you right to the Kickstarter.
All right, perfect.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah, so that one, we had, we're going to have over 32 different webcomic guests that did different cards about sadness and, life kicking the crap out of you and stuff like that. And it's super fun. It's a lot of talent on board. Yeah.
I like that a lot. Like you said, I think it is a theoretically very difficult conversation to have. I don't know how hard it is once we actually get in there and just say, hey, this is what we're going to talk about, this is how we're going to do it, and this is what the game's about. You know what I mean? But I think it's deeply relevant, not only to like you said, in the same way that the millennial manatees are, right?
Yeah.
But also the state.
We made that relevant by making it completely irrelevant. But this one is, probably would have done fine anyway. But it's like we were fortunate enough to release it in the saddest year imaginable. So yes. So obviously we would have been just fine with having a normal year and not all this craziness happening.
Right. Yeah.
But
you heard it here first. Jason Anarchy funded the saddest year.
Yeah, that's right. I'm a sadness profiteer. But no, it's like just being sad is one of those universal things, and it's like Shen already does a lot of good comics about that, obviously, I've been sad. Everyone's been sad. So you just kind of tap into what you know. This is kind of funny about Shen doing comics about depression. This is a real convention story.
Yeah.
Shen and I were on an end cap, sitting next to each other at a convention in Kansas City a few years ago. And who walks up to the booth? Will Wheaton himself.
Oh,
and so he's talking to Shen, and he's like, "Oh, dude, I love your comics so much. I love the way you tackle depression." And he's just gushing about how much he loves his comic. And then Shen is like, "Oh, thank you. Would you like me to sign a print for you?" He's like, "Oh yeah, that'd be great." It's like, "Who should I make it out to?" And he's like, "Oh, Will with one L." And then Shen kind of goes, "Oh, like Will Wheaton." And then he keeps signing, and then everyone around him were like, "Oh, dude, yeah!" We're trying to like get his attention. It was pretty awesome. So it's, but honest mistake. Anybody could make that. It's like 100 people walking up to the booth one after another, right? Like that's. But yeah, it was pretty funny, and then everyone had a good laugh about it. We all took pictures and stuff after. So.
I just want you to know how happy that made me. Oh boy, that's. I'm just gonna take that and carry it with me for the rest of my life. That's a lot of fun. The only conversation I had with Will Wheaton was just yelling at him from an escalator because he was wearing a kilt at Gen Con.
I remember that Gen Con when he was wearing a kilt. I assume it was the same one.
Probably.
Yeah, because I saw him walking around with the kilt.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Good
so
times.
sorry. What were you saying?
Just Will Wheaton was wearing a Misfits shirt, and I'm Jason Anarchy. I'm like a punk rock guy in games, so I very much appreciated that.
Sure, yeah. So he was racking up a lot of points. He was complimenting your partner, and then had the shirt on.
Yeah, great dude. Love him.
He loves gaming. I'll give him that one. Definitely loves gaming. I was like,
sure, please.
Just what the heck is fun, right? How do we define it? how do you know when someone is having fun? Like, is it a thing that you can take at face value? And why is it so important? Why do you think that we're constantly circling back around it? Why are we making these games to do it?
When two people really love each other, you just. Oh wait, I'm answering the wrong question.
My bad.
Yeah, no, no. Fun is just. I don't know. You just have a good time with your dumb friends, and it's like I keep calling them my dumb friends, but it's like I don't know. We just.
Term of endearment.
Yeah, no. It's game nights for me and my usual game groups are just so consistent. Everyone's just allowed to be a dumbass, and we have fun, and we laugh and we joke. And the game is always there. It's nice when we finish the game, but we don't always. Hanging out is always first.
Hmm.
And so my view of fun in games, relating to how I make them, is that, that's how I view fun. So it's like the game is secondary to the friends having a good time. So if I can facilitate a group of people, even better if they don't see each other very often, having a fun and memorable night, that is more important to me than having a game that lives on for hundreds of years and becomes the next chess, and lives up to the rigorous standards of Board Game Geek and things like that. So
Sure.
it's like I have a really loose kind of gut feeling opinion of fun, and don't get me wrong, if you're a hardcore gamer and you like specific kinds of games that are every micro choice matters, that's totally okay. There's just different ways to look at it. It's like I feel like I would really like to be that kind of gamer, but it's like it's never been possible because of whatever obligations. So
Sure.
it's always just something you can learn and start and finish in the same night with a group of low attention span people is what I like to do. So
Oh, that's so well put too. So that actually gives me two questions. But the one I want to start with, I actually did an exercise one time. As this like burgeoning game designer, tabletop creator, right? And it was like essentially it boiled down to make a list of the things you think are important in a game, right? Make a like whatever you're like, I need this, and then I can do the thing, right? So it's like it was like okay, I was like rules, obviously gotta have a lot of rules, right? Like but they gotta be like quick to look up, right? You can't be spending for hours like flipping through pages, right, and everything else. And
sure.
I had this, and it was probably like 25 things, right? It was this exhaustive list of like all these crazy things, and then it was like okay, put it away and put it away long enough that you're like not thinking about it, right? And play a game.
Hmm.
And then now go revisit your list and write down the things that you needed, right? Write down the things that you're like, we used this, we wanted this, this is what made, right? And it was like people, right? It was like we had fun, we laughed, right? Like nothing that was on that list, right? Like just absolutely two completely disparate things. And I don't know that I ever did anything with that information, right? But like I stopped, very similar to what I feel like you just said. I stopped, you know, thinking about like crunch as being so important, right? Like I made the
Yeah.
games fun. I had fun with the people I was playing with.
Yeah. Crunch is a good word for it because that can be both good and bad depending on what your objectives are. For hanging out with people, kind of thing. Like if you've got a group that meets 5 times a week, you probably want something a little crunchier. But if it's like once or twice a month kind of thing,
Sure.
you don't want to have a night where you spend a night learning the rules and then don't play the game, and that's it really.
Right.
And this age too, like there's so many games, everyone's got different games they want to play, and there's a million things you can do. Yeah, even in COVID times, it's like we still have a lot of options. Like it's I've got some games on Tabletop Simulator now, which is kind of neat. That was a new thing.
Yeah.
But personally, I've been playing on oh god, what is it?
Just like another virtual tabletop.
Yeah, it's a French site. What is it? It's the games aren't in French, but I think it's based out of France. I looked it up. It's
Yeah.
anyway. They have games like Dice Forge and Potion Explosion, and those are great games. They translate really well to the that kind of format sort of thing. So
Is
it's
it
like
is it Foundry? No.
no, it's
That's okay. I don't know. I feel
I'll
like
try and look that up later.
okay. I feel like I had heard a lot of people talking about Foundry. Was it Foundry? Yeah, Foundry recently. I actually only just started using
Board Game Arena. That's it.
Board
Sorry.
Game Arena. Okay, cool. I'll
Yeah.
have to check into that.
Yeah, the interface is great. The learning curve is super quick. There's no frustrating phase of figuring things out. All the games I played have just been really intuitive on there. So
That's cool. Personally curious how you've been able to balance like the real life, right? Like the home, the family and everything with all of that travel, right? Like you said, this is the year that you weren't even traveling that much, but that's got to be a huge change in everything.
Yeah. No, yeah, there's challenges, and it's just you just got to be alert and paying attention. And this year it turns out not traveling is actually much harder to get work done because when I'm traveling, I don't have kids all over me and stuff like that.
Sure.
And like I said, I'm at airports or whatever, I can get work done. Like it's pretty nice. Downtime at a booth, it's like a bit of social awkwardness in me. It's like I don't want to be the guy that's like making eye contact and trying to flag people over. If they see the booth and they're interested, by all means walk over. I'll happily talk to them.
Yeah.
But it's like so in order to avoid making eye contact, I'll just sit there and just get a shit ton of work done. Nice. So it's a nice secondary benefit there. But no, it's all just day by day. There's no system. It's just if you're someone who wants to be a designer and you have kids, it's like your life's already chaos. Like there's no controlling everything that's happening. So just throw one more thing in. Why not?
Oh, that's funny. Well, that makes me feel good. Hold on, I just had a thought and then I lost it. Let me check my notes really quick to see if it brings it back.
That's why we had to do 10 o'clock. The COVID bedtime schedule just got so lax that it's like, okay, I believe at 10 o'clock I can do this without kids walking into the room. Kind of thing,
yeah, you're getting taken out high and low. No,
yeah.
I totally lost it. I don't know what it is, but hopefully it'll come back. We'll see if we can table that thought. So yeah, I'll cheat and revert back to these questions that I wrote earlier. At least any of them that I can. I do remember what it was. I thought it was in here. So I, once again, I kind of said, hey, here are a couple things I want to talk about. Let me know what you think. If there's anything that's like weird or you want to dig into a little more. I genuinely really liked your answer for the question where I kind of asked, like, where do you think that line is between like advertising and brand manipulation? I think it's super relevant in like such an internet-based world, right? Especially now, right? This whole year, like you all of your interactions with your friends, like by and large, right, have moved into online, right? Like we used to come over and finally put those blasted devices away for a minute, and now here we are staring at fucking computers for 18 hours a day. And just getting assaulted with ads. And I think it's really tough. Like, I personally really struggle with it as somebody who wants to put my own creative endeavors out there. And I'm not even selling anything. I'm just like, do you have spare time? I can't imagine you do, but would you want to listen to D&D? Right? And then you've got the added challenge of like, here's a cool thing. Give me money for it.
Yeah. So advertising, I believe I put this in my answer, but it's 100% true. From childhood, I hated commercials. I hated ads. And, my mother would point out things that commercials do that manipulate you. Mm-hmm. And it was just, and she was right. And it's like, I saw these things and it's like, I love TV, but I hated the commercials and I would just watch them. And just so often it was just, I just hate everything that's happening. Sure. So I think I eventually became good at advertising because I hate it so much. So I know all of the dirty tricks that I don't want to use. I went to school for business management that had some advertising stuff in it. But the one I rely on the most is like, you don't need to manipulate people or make people feel bad about themselves to sell what you're selling. Unfortunately, there's too much of a psychological component to advertising. So I try and don't do that. I think advertising in its purest form is fine because it's just saying, hey, world, here's the thing I made. It exists. Yeah. Here's a link if you want to know more. So it's like I'll run ads online and they're all kind of similar. So it's like a one sentence, hey, here's the concept of the game. Sure. It's not, hey, you're fat and ugly. Why don't you play this game? This will improve your life somehow. It's, right. You'll grow all the hair on the back of your head or, whatever, right? Like it's on the back of your head. No, that's probably on the top.
I want hair on the back of my head. I do.
More, yeah, that's, so yeah, it's, I don't know. Like I try and just do very straightforward, simple advertising. And so what you don't want to do is annoy people with advertising because then I feel like, they'll go from not interested to actively trying to avoid you after that. Yeah. So if someone's not interested, maybe they will be interested in something you do someday. But you don't want people to be annoyed and, maybe put a little flag, with your company or your game name kind of thing. So plus it's just dishonest. I don't know if there's a lot of gaming ads that do the psychological stuff.
Sure.
Probably with the bigger companies, there's at least a bit of it, but it's I try and just make a thing that's good, and then if you let people know that the good thing exists, then in theory, they'll buy it after that. So, and that's worked for the ads I've run, so I haven't had to sync to any new lows or, do anything like that, thankfully. But, who knows what next year holds.
Yeah, true enough. Nah, something tells me, I mean, I feel like it once again goes back to like there is an ethical center to everything you're doing here, right? It is honest, it is straightforward, it is by and large, you know what I mean? It's about the fun and it's about caring about the people who are in that game, with you, right, surrounding that table. So that seems to have held steady and treated you very well, which is very inspiring.
Thank you. Yeah, well, that's one of the benefits of self-publishing. So if you want to release your own game, you are at least starting a small publishing company, which means you're always going to be working, but you can pick which 80 hours a week you work, kind of thing. So you get to make all those little micro choices.
Yeah, the illusion of control.
Yeah. So that 80 hours a week thing, I heard that from somewhere. I probably said that 5 years ago in the last interview we did, but it's very accurate for anyone who runs a business. Like, it's just. But I would rather do that than be a cubicle monkey kind of thing. So I did some time with that. It's like, okay, I can see the appeal for a lot of people, but not really my thing. The security with a full-time job is kind of nice, but it's like, I am enjoying the anarchy a little bit of just kind of riding the wave and not knowing what's happening, and just putting out stuff that I like, and thankfully so far players have liked it too.
That's so cool. So I do have a follow-up on that, but I actually want to make sure if there's anything that you wanted to talk about, or is there any, if any of my questions spurred on a question that you wanted to hit, like take that minute to make sure that you're getting something out of this.
No, this is all great. Keep asking away. It's all good.
So something that I feel like, and I think I remembered more about it when I was listening to our previous conversation. Have you ever experienced, or did you at any time, as people were kind of first discovering you, kind of run into that like Hunter Thompson, Raoul Duke situation, right? Like best biceps in the business, right? Like that is your personality online, and obviously you're very charismatic. You've got a great sense of humor and everything. But I haven't seen you chug 6 beers and jump on the table and start flexing. So do you get that? You're people like coming up like, come on, man, let's party. And you're like, I'm gonna work on my game.
This year I've been pretty good about that.
Yeah.
So it's because there's no conventions. No, yeah. Sometimes, sometimes people will egg you on and expect you to live up to a parody version. Sometimes, I'm down with it. Sometimes I'm not. There's definitely some insane convention stories. I've just done so many of them, and it's like, yeah, it's pretty nuts. Yeah. So I would say sometimes I try and live up to the parody version. Other times it's like, no, I'm a human being with limitations, and then other times I'm like, no, I'm not. So it's,
right. Forget that, guys. Screw it.
It depends on the situation, yeah. Like, generally, if it's before the Saturday at a show, I don't want to go out and drink a lot on the Friday night. Not to say that necessarily stops me every time.
Sure.
The most hungover I've ever been, I think I don't know, it was not proportionate to the amount I drank, so I suspect there was like a secondary thing, like maybe somebody drugged me or something. It was a Gen Con.
Oh, jeez.
You can believe it. And, we were... I think I had like 6 or 7 total drinks, but the next day was my worst hangover ever, like by a large margin. And it was so weird. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I didn't have any Tylenol or, anything to take for a headache either. But huge shout out to Claudio Pozaz, who I was sharing a hotel room with. And he had some headache stuff. And then I walked in a little late to the convention, but it was an awful, awful day. So.
Jeez. That's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta keep the painkillers on you. Painkillers, a lot of water, comfy shoes.
Yeah, shoes are important. Yeah, I like Converse. I like flat shoes, but yeah, if you're standing at a convention for 4 days, it's like just wear the comfy shoes, even if they don't have the punk rock kind of pop punk vibe to them or whatever. Like that's I like to keep my brand up a little bit, but yeah, that's not the time for it.
Right, the aesthetics only get you so far. So do you have is there a convention that has like cemented itself in your heart as like, this is my convention? I you always look forward to doing it, or do you mostly love all of your children there?
Yeah, like they're all good in different ways. PAX East and PAX Oz are probably, and PAX South
Hmm.
are probably my three favorites. So all PAXs, but they're good for like they're easy for me to get to logically. Well, not PAX Oz, but it's like
That's not
it
easy for
allows me
anyone to get to,
it allows me to go to Australia. So
which is
I'm
cool.
happy that that con exists.
Yeah.
I did UK Games Expo last year. That was a lot
Oh,
of
neat.
fun. Um,
I
I
love
went
their.
to Hawaii Con last year too. That was a fun one too. But it was pretty small. I don't know if it would make sense to go back there, but
Sure.
it's pretty neat. Got to go to Hawaii.
Yeah, that one sounds super cool. I've actually never heard of it. The UK Games Expo, I really love their logo. I see it every year, and I'm like, that'll be cool someday. Um,
Yeah, that's a really well run show. Yeah, and it's easy to get to. It's by the airport. There's like hotels in the airport and everything. So
sure.
it's just in Birmingham,
Right.
England, which is pretty neat. So
That's always gonna
yeah,
help. Yeah, that.
yeah. And this Gen Con too that just passed. I for the first time I would have had a hotel room like
You would have
right
had a
across the street.
contingent, like
Yeah,
connected to
and
the ICC.
yeah, it was like
Oh,
booked ahead of time, and I was like, finally, this is my year. And then nope.
that is
So
actually the worst. Are they like honoring anything? Has it been like defaulted and kicked to 2021 or?
uh, so they like emailed me, and they set up a call, and they're like, can we keep your money until next year, and you still get a booth? And I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, okay. Like it's because they're also doing Gen Con online,
Yeah.
and me personally, I wasn't heavily involved in that, but it's
Sure.
like, oh, okay, it needs to go back to physical form to like I probably wouldn't keep doing it if it was Gen Con online,
Sure.
because it's like, I can run ads and
Yeah.
I know they'll work, but it's like paying money for an online con. I
Yeah.
don't think anyone has figured out a good way to make that kind of mutually beneficial yet.
I wouldn't think so. Yeah.
I know Repop's working on something. I'm looking at PAX Online,
Hmm.
and they have
Okay.
a pretty different approach, so I might be willing to try that. So,
That's cool. Yeah, I hadn't even
but
heard of that.
but but I would love it if the companies that ran conventions figured out some solution where it was good for everyone,
Hmm.
and they're definitely trying their best, as we all are in this bonkers year. So
Yeah. Did you do anything for Gen Con Online? I heard they had like a virtual dealer hall. I actually didn't go into it. I just played a few games and hung out in the Chaldea party room. Chaldea.
uh, I I did one thing. I had a panel,
Hmm.
and I had like I was on like their portal kind of thing.
Hmm.
Uh, And then my panel was originally, just me. It's like normally I get in front of a room full of people. It's like I'll do a Q&A,
Yeah,
about game design or self-publishing or something like that.
sure.
But then I kind of thought, okay, well, maybe that wouldn't work online. I'm just sitting in my messy office, just talking. It's like there's no precedent for that. It's like I'll try and get some awesome friends to do the panel with me that are interesting and know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
So the last minute, I tried to, kind of update the listing, and there were a lot of emails going back and forth, and I got the impression that they were busy with other things. So it was I didn't personally like the panel was great, but it was like I can't really judge it too much because I just did that one thing, and it was
sure.
a little sloppy just because it was new for everybody.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I get that. That's cool though. So you were able to get a couple
it,
people roped in.
yeah, I got Patrick Leader from Leader Games, and John Ritter from Lay Waste, Julie from Greenbrier, and Daniel Kwan, who's from Toronto, where I am. He just came out with a World War One RPG book, which I think is kind of neat. World War One doesn't get a lot of love in like gaming and
Right.
media, but I think it's really interesting because they didn't have all the cool technology, so they couldn't quite cheat. So it was like the people were they couldn't cheat as much. The people were the
Sure.
resources.
Right.
It was dirty, trench warfare. Like it was horrible, but it was like really tactically
Sure.
interesting. So I'm
Yeah.
curious to check that out.
You definitely find that there's still a lot to be mined, right? As far as like gaming and information and IP. I definitely consistently lament the lack of like real quality like westerns, right? Especially like the weird western kind of stuff. Like I know Savage Worlds has one that gets like a decent amount of like attention, which is so of course I'm drawing on the name, but I feel like there's still a lot of good IPs that could come out of that uh, setting, for lack of a better term.
Yeah,
Okay.
playing through Curse of Strahd during COVID online with my regular friends. So
Oh,
it's
that's cool.
That's been pretty fun, but it's like it's just not the same as being in person.
No.
It's like I definitely want to do it. I definitely want to keep the group together, but it's like yeah, sooner we can kick COVID's ass, the better for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So I've got one more here that I really liked that I wanted to make sure I hit because I thought it was just like like a quintessential piece of advice, right? So I kind of asked, there's a lot of people who want to do publishing, a lot of people who want to do making games. Or it doesn't have to be tabletop. It could be board games. It could be card games. It could be whatever, right? Just
Sure.
gaming, entertainment in general. And I said, but they don't always know how to start. Although YouTube and stuff are really great resources, but what tips do you have? Maybe what's something that you wish people knew more about, right, when they were getting into it? And I'll just turn that over to you and let you kind of frame that scene.
Yeah, the best answer for that I've ever witnessed was designer Jonathan LaValle. We were doing a panel, and someone asked the kind of very general question of, "How do I make a game?" And
You.
and Jonathan, he was on that day, but you could also tell he had kind of had it with that question, and he's like, "You just make it," and that stuck with me because it's just entirely accurate. Stop trying to come up with a theory first; just make the game.
Right.
And it's not going to be perfect right away, but making the game is revising it after you made the original version. So just make a working version today of the game you're thinking of making, because all the problems that you're going to be having will reveal themselves to you very quickly. It's like, oh, I'm going to need a component for this. Oh, what do I do if this happens? Okay, well, now I'll write that down. And it's like, you just make it and try and play it. And the things that stop you from finishing the game, improve them for the next version, and then once you have a game where you can get to the end, then you make it so it's a better game until you get to the end, and you just keep tweaking it. You want to play it with as many people as possible, but it's not one big thing. It's like 1,000 little problems to solve. So, and yeah, you're going to be printing out cards on your printer at home, and cutting out Bristol board, and all kinds of crappy components for demos and early versions. It doesn't need to look nice. It just needs to function. Mm-hmm. And even better, if it looks like crap, if it looks like absolute hot garbage, but it's still fun, that means your mechanics are good. Because people aren't being, wooed by, a fun theme or something like that. So,
right, yeah.
So yeah, if you got a demo that looks like garbage, but the gameplay is good and people still have fun, then you've got something.
That's cool. I like that advice a lot. I feel like the more I kind of dig into it, I hear various degrees, but that same sort of thing, right? There's a YouTuber who's also, I guess he's like a businessman, CEO, ad agency guy. His name's Devin Nash, but he does a lot of Twitch stuff. He does a lot of YouTube stuff, and he's always talking about like content creation, but as well as like marketing and sales because that's his background.
Sure.
And I forget who he was talking to, but he brings a lot of guests on. He has, a lot of really good conversations that I mine for any scrap of information I can get out of him. But he was like, literally, there is nothing better than doing a thing, right? Like all of the time in the world to plan, all of the time in the world to weigh options, to, oh, well, what about this, right? If we did this, it would be 2.6%, but right, like it will never be the same as if you had just gone out and done it. And I think. I think that obviously there's caveats to that, right? Like it's a big wide world and everything, but I think the idea there is right, like in the same way in art, in the same way right in life, it's working towards, like you said, it's that iteration. Doing it is better than it being perfect but not done.
Yeah. Make a flawed finished thing and then just keep improving that. So once you have your clay to work with, then you can mold it into something.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. The only other question I feel like is a really theoretically bad one to add on. I don't know that it's like got a good like oomph, right? But I also I tend to like to ask people a little bit about burnout. I think that's also super relevant in 2020, like creative burnout, right? The like.
Sure.
Like when we went into quarantine, I from what I have gathered, Canada seems to have done much better than America. Even if I'm in New York and upstate New York at that, right?
Yeah, we're kind of next to each other, but yeah, they're totally different situations. So
right.
The rest of the world is rooting for you for sure.
Thank you.
We want to see you get out of this.
We need it, man. I don't know what to tell you. there was like that joke, it's like, oh, so and so wrote this, Shakespeare wrote King Lear in quarantine, right? Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein on a dare in an afternoon, right? And then, they're like, you've got 3 months, where's your novel, kind of thing. And it's like, well, world's rough, man. I don't know what you want from me.
Yeah, yeah. It's I don't know. It's actually, I think in those questions you asked me if there was any books or anything
Oh
that I
yeah,
could
yeah, yeah,
recommend to help
yeah.
with game design. I didn't really have a good answer there. I think I said, find influences outside of gaming,
Mm-hmm.
which is a good answer, and that's a big
Yes.
part of what I do. But there is one book that I didn't want to name drop, but it did help me initially to commercially release my first game.
Hmm.
So it's Atlas Shrugged, which is
Oh.
a by Ayn Rand. It's a terrible book. It's a piece of
Okay.
crap. It's
Okay. All
absolute
right.
hot garbage. So
Thank
let me
you.
let me just say that right away. Okay, Atlas Shrugged sucks. Ayn Rand sucks.
Okay.
That book enables billionaires to continue, mining the earth of everything that's good about it
Mm-hmm.
and keeping it for themselves. That being said,
Yeah.
as a fantasy book, it is well written, and there's a meme that compares Lord of the Rings and Atlas Shrugged, and it's like one's a great fantasy book, and the other one is blah blah blah, and then it reverses it. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
but I like the fantasy writing because the world that it exists is not the real world. Like it doesn't take into it claims to have the answer for everything,
Yeah.
but it doesn't take into account that children exist and things like that. Like
Sure.
there's a lot of obvious flaws. So as a fantasy book, I like how it's written, except for the 100-page John Galt speech. That sucks, but it is a 1100-page book or whatever.
Yeah.
But when I finished it, I absolutely wanted to work harder than I've ever worked in my life, and that definitely stuck with me. So if you want to drill it into your brain to work hard, it's a good book to read. Even though the protagonist starts off a millionaire owning a train company,
Right.
that doesn't matter. Just another of the many flaws.
Sure. Right.
But
right.
and because it was Bioshock, I was playing Bioshock, and it was like Andrew Ryan was based off of Ayn Rand, but Andrew Ryan was the villain, and I wasn't picking that up when I was reading the book, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is a great book. I love this book. I want to work so hard.
Right.
And then as the years passed, I'm like, oh, okay,
Oh.
that's kind of the reputation that. So, yeah, so that worked for me, but it probably won't work for anyone else. I don't know. You'd have to read an 1100-page book. That's work unto itself. It's probably easier to just make a game. So
That's-
that's my challenge to you. If you don't make a game, you have to read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, and you'll suffer from it.
Yeah, and you won't be able to. So,
It's not a good book.
I don't know that I've ever been more wrong in my entire life. I was like, I don't know. This may not be the greatest question. We're kind of winding down here. Great question. 10 out of 10. Nailed it.
Take the Ayn Rand game design challenge.
Yeah, right.
Make a game or read Atlas Shrugged.
You say that, but that's the YouTube clip, right? We're talking about how to get in people's head. They're like, I gotta click it. I know it's an hour, but come on, we gotta not click it. Oh, that's funny. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So do you have anything you want to hit? Is there anything that you wanted to make sure got in there? Any questions? Unfortunately, our chat kind of got a little quiet. It's a little bit later than we usually play.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I'm hopeful for a rousing YouTube crowd that is hanging on your every word.
Yeah, no, thanks for playing my games, those who have, and if you want to check out my games, it's jasonanarchygames.com, and that links to all my stuff and shows all my silly games on there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll drop it in chat one more time, but like I said, I plan on putting that in all of the information and stuff. Just to make sure, that is the goal, right? Anytime somebody can find a game or hear something about it, and I think that when they get to meet who's making it or hear a little bit about why it was made or something, that is an impression that's actually worth something.
Yeah.
At least in my experiences, I have definitely gone in I think I know everything about Drinkingquest and who cares, right? And then talking to you, not that this happened, right? But then talking to you, listening to you speak, you're oh my god, I identify so much with this, and what a great person or what a great purpose for the game. But yeah, no, I have consistently been impressed with like I said, I really liked your approach early on with the hand of the creator. I feel like something that I meant to talk about a little bit that I never quite found the time to get it in there was how much you talked about like gaming didn't have a lot of like games that were funny, right? Like people could be funny.
Sure.
Gamers liked to laugh, right? They like to drink beer and eat pretzels and have a good time. But I think that you've kind of brought that in a way that's been like super visceral and super effective. And like the only
Thank
thing
you.
I can kind of compare it to, and you know, you'll have to forgive me, my background is more in tabletop than like board games or card games. That's like very much what Paranoia goes for, right? Like Paranoia is very
Okay.
old and it's very absurd. It knows it's very absurd, right? Like that is the fun, right? The farcical, nonsensical, right? But like it's very much, you know, it's like Del the Funky Homo Sapien. You know what I mean? Like it's
Sure.
very
Yeah.
much out on its own. Nobody's doing it. And right, and now here we are so many years later and we're hitting it again, and it's like, no, we've done that. Not to say that you can't do it, go and enjoy it, but you gotta remember and you gotta, you know, pay that homage to where, you know, where we've been.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. No, no, it's good to be back. We'll do another one in 5 years, and
Yes.
I'm sure we'll have a lot of stuff to talk about, and we'll be like, wow, I can't believe conventions still haven't started yet.
Right, yeah.
What a nightmare life we all live. Wow.
What
COVID's
avatar
even
did you
worse.
randomly get in Gen Con Online 2023, right? I was the.
Oh yeah, I can't believe Trump got a third term.
Oh my god, dude.
Oh,
How dare you?
oh I've said the name that kills every conversation. I'm
That's
sorry.
okay.
We should
It's
have
okay.
been
We
here.
were already done anyway, but man.
Okay, good. But don't forget the Ayn Rand challenge, viewers.
Okay, yeah, that's actually
Read
hilarious.
read Atlas Shrugged or design a game. The choice is yours.
I love it. All right, cool. That is going to be it for us. It's certainly not the last you'll hear of Jason Anarchy. And we've got the it was Pledge Manager, not Backer Kit. Pledge Manager. If you still
Pledge
want to
Manager.
get in on what was the actual name? It was not. It was not.
Your friend is
Your
sad.
friend is sad. That's right. Yeah.
Trying to cheer up a sad friend. Who is Shen from Shen Comics. So
As it turns out.
yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.